Boa noite. Boa noite and good evening. We'll be bilingual today, okay? For those of you who are in New York, it's 7 p.m. It's 8 a.m. in São Paulo. And just a few words in português. Pessoal, nós vamos falar inglês hoje. Aproveitem para desenferrujar o inglês. You may ask your questions in our chat in any language, yeah, feel free to ask questions. And this Cine dELA, as always on Fridays, today is a very special edition because we have such a wonderful guest. She's so powerful, she's strong. She is a filmmaker, she's a journalist, she's a mother of 2 and almost 3, and my guest is, look at that, it's Ayelet Vardi. Hi, Ayelet.
Hi, Claudia, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you have so many stories to tell us, and so wonderful images. And I thought the best thing to do is that our audience should see a bit of your work. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea.
Wonderful. So we will start with one of your short films. It's about 5 minutes. It's about a ballerina, a ballet teacher in a favela in Rio, right?
Yes.
So let's start. Sorry?
It's a favela called Complexo de Alemão.
No Complexo do Alemão, right. It's one of the biggest in Rio, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And let's show this short film and then we talk about it. Let's try here. Compartilhar.
Aqui no mundo é Deus, no Complexo do Alemão. Assim, eu comecei com balé clássico, porque minha mãe me levou, né? Foi tão natural, depois que eu entrei naquilo, eu não quis mais parar. Então, assim, minha avó sempre dizia que percebia que eu tinha o dom para alguma coisa do tipo. Eu tinha feito 18 anos há pouco tempo, precisava já ajudar em casa e já não podia mais estar treinando porque a minha faixa de idade já não me permitia mais competir. E por intermédio disso eu comecei a trabalhar, mas no meu tempo livre eu tomei a liberdade de treinar, sabe, sozinha, meio pra não perder aquele gosto pela dança. E fui treinando, sabe, sozinha. Sendo que toda vez que eu ia pra lá, sempre tinha uma, duas meninas que aí ficavam olhando o vídeo pra mim ensinar elas aquilo que eu tava fazendo. Então eu sempre tava ali ajudando elas, só que era uma coisa constante. Então, eram 2, de repente 3, 4, e com o tempo foi aumentando e passou a ser uma coisa fixa. Eu sempre tava ali, já não tava mais eu treinando, eu tava ensinando a elas. E depois, com o tempo, com as pessoas vendo aquilo ali, que foi se tornar um projeto social, assim, de uma forma natural, sabe? Não acordei com a ideia de ter um projeto social. ele fluiu, assim, de forma simples. As pessoas do meu bairro, da minha comunidade, fazerem balé é uma coisa que não é comum, assim, não é uma realidade das meninas. Elas entram no balé clássico com desafios. Sair um pouco do que elas estão acostumadas a ouvir, do que é real para elas, entrar num mundo totalmente diferente. Eu não vou sair daqui com bailarinas, sabe? Então eu acho importante eu colocando isso dentro delas, plantando essa semente, para que elas cresçam de forma diferente. E eu tento colocar isso para elas, para que elas entendam que elas têm mais valor. Então eu tento mostrar para elas que elas podem muito mais, sabe? Que crescer é bom e que não tem que se limitar naquele. Buscar sempre mais além do que aquilo que elas podem. Não aceitar tudo como verdadeiro, como real. Não aceitar aquela vida que eu levo como meu destino. Como, vai ser sempre isso aqui, não vai mudar. Estar dentro dessa sociedade, acho que não me amedronta. O que me faz continuar e não desistir disso é a partir do momento que eu descobri que, sabe, dançar é minha vida. Já tentei outra coisa, já vi que não tem graça. Acho que isso que não me faz desistir mais. E isso também me transformou. Então, já que me transformou, por que não também não usar isso? Essa arte para poder transformar as outras meninas, as outras pessoas. Então, assim, eu posso estar transformando as meninas como pessoas e transformando os outros por estarem vendo aquela arte, achando aquilo bonito. Acho que isso faz com que eu continue, que eu não desista, sabe? Por mais que tenham 1000 coisas que façam a gente tentar parar e tal, mas a gente continua porque isso me faz bem.
So we're back.
Here we are again.
Wow, Tuane, at the Complexo do Alemão. That's a great film about empowerment, right? That's one of your themes, and it's a social background as well. Talk a bit about this project, this Tuane project.
It's called Puntas dos Pés, so on the tiptoes. And when I was still doing back and forth between New York and Sao Paulo, a friend of mine who lived here, I said, Ayelet, I know that you're a journalist and you have this interest in women and empowerment and people that are doing amazing things with little tools that they have. And I heard about this ballerina. I said, that sounds amazing. Where is the ballerina? And he said, she's based in Rio, in Complexo de Alemão. It's a favela in the outskirts of Rio. And you should really have, a chat with her. So it started by basically looking for an in. How do I get a hold of Tuane? How do I contact a person that is only known by name and kind of like a profession? But in journalism, we have this type of thing that's called a fixer. So these are people that live around these areas, and then somehow they make things happen and they put you into motion, And so I find a good one, actually. I was still living in New York, and he took me to meet Tuane, and we met one day, and I met this so smart, this very motivated girl. She was 20 at the time when we filmed that film. And she started to tell me her story, and I went back to New York, and I couldn't stop thinking about her story and about what she's doing, the small impact she's doing. Actually, no, the big impact she's doing in her community, which is not so big. And I said, I have to film this. I have to I have to put her on a platform that will bring visibility to what she's doing, to her personality, that will inspire other girls in favelas, in other, disadvantaged places around the world, to inspire them to have the opportunity to dream and to say, okay, we can do something. What is it that we know how to do? And how can we make an impact, even just in our community? So kind of like, to trickle that kind of tool, to trickle it down to the next generation and the community around her.
Yeah. And it's a very, sorry.
Yeah, and that's how the story of Tuani came to life. So basically, I spent a few days with her, with Tuani, with a great Brazilian team that I met here in São Paulo that came with me, Andrew Leon and Felipe Leon. And we just, it was during the Zika, I remember. Now we have COVID, then we had Zika. There is something always, right?
Everything, yeah.
I was also pregnant. I'm pregnant now 9 months, and I was pregnant then like 7 months. And it was just an amazing experience because Tuani is such a powerful person. It's this like mental strength from within. And her story is interesting because she grew up in the favela, but she got a scholarship to study in a school, in a very good school in Rio. So she was doing the transitioning every day from the favela to the school. And so, our world was kind of like she was learning to dance ballet, which is one of the most aristocratic dancing, dance styles in the world. And every day she came back to a reality that was far from every inspiration, of ballet, right?
Yeah.
And so she was kind of like a person, like a hybrid person that lives between two dimensions, two worlds, two cultures. And I was trying to bring it to life in the story. So you see the shoe on the dirt when it was raining, and she did this kind of like very proud walk, so you see the muscles, and so I was trying to show it in the story. And
the images are wonderful. You see the reactions here from the people who are watching here. Wow, how beautiful, breathtaking, outstanding footage, etc. Absolute success.
Thank you.
And no, but the images, it's really it's not kind of a pity-ish or pitying perspective. It's something else you take out of these
images. Why would we do it in a way that is pity? I think when we have, if you take the time to watch a social documentary, this is kind of like a social documentary. You take the time to watch it, it's because also like you have some kind of interest in social issues. And I think, the discussion of how horrible the reality is at times, the discussion about gender inequality, the discussion about, teen pregnancy in these places, not only in the favelas in Rio, it could be in any other place that is disadvantaged in the world. The lack of dreams, the lack of opportunities. I think it's things that we know already. So how about we try to, to look at this person, to look at this community in a way that it's more relatable.
Yeah.
This person is a person like us. He has these tools. He can make something. If he knows something, he can make something.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Perfect. And you traveled with all these films. You traveled a lot around Brazil and the world, and you worked with. It was a film about an ISIS survivor, right? Things like that, or in the middle of the Amazon region, where you interviewed Sidney Pozuelo, right?
Yeah, actually, Sydney was an interview that was done during the COVID.
But it's quite interesting, that article you wrote about that.
Yeah, I did a profile with Sidney Pozuelo. Sidney Pozuelo is a certainista. So he used to be the head of FUNAI. And prior to that, he was working for the Boavila's brothers. Okay. So he was one of the first people when they tried to demarcate the Xingu Reserve, which was the first reserve in Brazil that was demarcated. It was a huge political struggle to demarcate it. It was, it took around 20 years. Sidney was there. He was helping the Boavista's brother with everything they needed, coming back and forth from São Paulo. And it became his life passion. It started as an adventure for him as a kid. He was reading about it. Brazil apparently during these times, everyone were very fascinated about the Amazon and thought, you go there and see. Yeah,
Ooh.
exactly. And so for him, it started like this, and then it became real. He got to know the people. He flew to the Xingu. He started to see what's behind, the headlines in the news, and he became very passionate with the cause. And so for years, he was working, with FUNAI. He was trying to contact, tribes. What's interesting is that at some point he had a realization that by contacting the tribes, he's actually harming them because he's bringing them into civilization. I mean, that's his philosophy, right? And then he shifted back and he started to do something the exact opposite, actually, like 180 degrees to the other side. He said, I want to protect them, but in a way that I'm not going to contact them, but I'm going to prove that they exist so I can demarcate the land, using the legislation of the Brazilian law.
Yeah.
And I find it very interesting. It's one person. He started it as a teenager. He was waiting for the Boavilas brothers. He was going to their sister house here in São Paulo every week until finally, like, one of them, contacted him when he came to São Paulo and invited him for one of the missions. Look how beautiful, look how many things we can do just with the power of will.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering how these all these subjects, how do you look for them? You heard about Tuani and you said, wow, I have to do a film, I have to do something with that story. Or do you look for them, or just it's socially interesting, or what's your main what drives you to select your subjects in general, or is it difficult to say? Just a curiosity of mine.
I'm sometimes I'm not sure if I choose the subject or the subject chose me. Because I know that I have this interest in human rights, in social issues, and then I'm very inspired by people that are taking initiatives. And so many times it's kind of like it's in between. Sometimes I would go, for instance, one of the projects that we're developing now in my company, it's more entertainment. It's about one of the most powerful businesswomen in the 15th century in Portugal. And the way I came across the story was in Paris. I went to the Jewish Museum, and suddenly I saw a coin, and on the coin was a woman. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's a woman. So I started to read the story next to the coin. What is it? What is she about? And I Googled her, and suddenly I'm like, wow, this woman was amazing. She was lending money to kings and queens, and she was like a businesswoman in the 15th century, a widow. I was like, okay, so that story, I don't know if I find the story or the story find me, It's curiosity. I think in the essence of things, it's curiosity. Like, you have to be curious. And I always ask questions, when I meet friends. Everything is interesting for me.
And it's in the little things you people usually don't see, but you have to keep your eyes and minds open, right? In your mind open. So it's in the little things which tells you, they tell you a lot of stories, right? And I just read a question here. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
No, I just agreed with you.
Okay. Okay, good. Just a question here. What was the biggest difficulty in Morro do Alemão for you? Eduardo is asking.
Eduardo? Hi, Eduardo. Well, the biggest difficulty was being 7 months pregnant. It was really hot. And there was a Zika, and everyone was saying, oh, what are you doing here in the Zika? And then, everything is so beautiful, actually, in that part of Complexo da Alemão where we were, until something happened. So why I called it Dancing in the Crossfire, because Tuani had that kind of basketball court where she was teaching the girls to dance ballet. And on one end of this basketball court, there was this kind of like a cantina where all the, the drug lord, like, the people that are, more controlling the favela in a cultural manner, they were sitting there the whole day, drinking beers, just hanging out. And then the pacified police was on the other side of the basketball court on a little hill, So everything was always like really nice until suddenly you are finding yourself in the crossfire. And then you have to, either you duck down, either it's, it's more intensified and you have to find, your way out with the crew, with the team, like with the cameras. And then, you have to assess, am I going to keep filming today? Am I going to stop? What are we doing? So, I think the difficulty was to find the routine to make the story happen visually, like, to make the film, because you're not always feeling safe.
Okay, that's a big problem. And 7 months pregnant, so. But there's something very interesting you told me, and I wanted to tell it here. You love telling stories, and it started somewhere there in the past when you were a girl. It's very interesting. It's your personal story, your personal history. Can you tell us how it started? It's quite interesting and very strong as well.
Sure. So it was 1981. I don't know if you guys remember in Brazil, but it was the Gulf War. And thinking about Ukraine these days, when I see the kids on TV, it really breaks my heart, because we cannot even compare what happened there, what is happening there, to what happened in my country. I was born and raised in Israel. But we were like under missile attacks. And I was 10 years old. And we spent a lot of time in the shelters, And at some point, okay, you play chess, you read something, or at some point, also the parents are a bit like, okay, go do something. So my mother, I had so many questions. I was so curious. I wanted to know why Saddam Hussein is doing it, why people will hate people like this. What is the whole thing about? And she bought me a diary. She said, Ayelet, I have an idea. You write. And once in a while, we're going to discuss everything that you're writing and the questions and your thoughts. And, we're going to have a conversation. I said, okay. And I think, that's why I also told you, I think for me, it's actually amazing. Sometimes I see my kids and they're bored. And I'm like, amazing. They need to be bored. They need to have that kind of, feeling. Because I think from this moment, it's where you can create. And so I was so bored, sitting in the shelter, not knowing when we're going to go out, what's going on. And I really started writing, and I wrote a lot. I have I think 2 or 3 diaries just from the Gulf War, which was only like a few months, the length of the war. And I think that's how it started. Then I started to write short stories, like things that I see today and makes me laugh. But that's when I realized, and then I started to read books. So it was always that kind of world that was very fascinating to me.
It's a kind of survival, right? And how old are your kids?
I have a 3 years old, a 5 years old, and I have a kid. He's supposed to be born any day now.
Any day now. Well, so an extra thank you for being here.
Yes.
But the question is, today kids, I mean, the writing is something physical as well, right? And how does it work with, let me say, digital platforms and digital things, right? It's difficult to see a kid with a pen writing, right?
Yeah, it's almost, for me that I come from, a different, I feel like like the last lasting kind of like a dinosaur sometimes, right? My kids do write, actually, and they write in 4 languages. So I'm very proud of them.
Wow, 4 languages. Yeah. Which are?
My language, which is Hebrew, my husband's language, which is French, Portuguese, because they live here, and English.
Wonderful.
So they do write, but that physical. I only write on paper. When I need to write, I write on paper.
Okay.
And then and then obviously I put it on a doc word.
Okay.
But it's true. It's a very physical act, and it's something, for me, something is missing when you do it digitally. But you know what? At the same time, we live in the now, and this is the now. And for them, what we feel that is lacking, for them is not lacking. And they will find other ways to create. They're going to go into the metaverse, and they're going to create stories that I wouldn't be able to. Right?
Metaverse, yeah, okay. That's interesting. People are saying here, Juan is saying, wonderful interview. Ana Claudia is saying, kids nowadays struggle to read cursive. Well, that's what we're talking about. But it's, I'm sure you'll do something with your kids in this direction, whatever it is. But I mean, this story is so interesting. And you told me something about the Ukrainians. Is it a project for the future here in Brazil? Ukrainians in Brazil, is that right? Ukrainian refugees in the south of Brazil, or did I get it wrong somehow?
Yeah, I don't know if I can. It's too young to talk about.
Okay, forget it. Sorry. But
It's
anyway,
too young to talk about, but we
anyway,
there are
yeah,
definitely very interesting Ukrainian communities in Brazil. There are many communities in Brazil, but communities that live very traditionally and in a way that is very connected to their ancestry, where they came from. And one of the communities, we're looking into it now, and one of the communities that we came across is a Ukrainian community, very religious. And, maybe in the next interview, we're going to speak about it.
Yeah.
In length.
In Paraná you have what are they called there? The Mennonites, the kind of Amish people, something like that. That would be interesting as well.
Yes,
kind of,
as well.
But
this is the beauty of Brazil. That's why everyone is asking me, how was the move from New York to Brazil, to São Paulo? And I'm like, I love it because this country is so diverse. You can find really like everything from everything, and people can keep their identity if they want. And if they want, they can come into the melting pot and just become very Brazilian, which is a mix of everything. And this is something that I think is beautiful to see in this country.
Yeah. And to capture this, to put this in your films, which are short, it's very difficult to say so much in 5 minutes. And you manage that, in a way that is wow, It's wonderful.
Sometimes we don't even say so much, right, in the film. In Karaiva, the film about the Ongi, which I think you're going to share with the audience, we didn't share so much. And that's a film that is used actually to raise money for the Ongi, which is called Karaiva Viva. Which is based in
we can show that, Karaiva Viva. How about that?
Yeah,
Karaiva, well, it's I I knew Karaiva when it still wasn't a kind of touristic paradise.
Yes.
What Erika Botstein's writing, diário de guerra pode trazer paz interior. A war diary brings you inner peace, can bring you inner peace. And she's saying this written material is for sure beautiful. You kept it, I guess.
Yes.
It's a kind of pain, And she's asking, do you translate this pain a bit in your films and something like that? Perhaps that's a question she's asking.
I think that my films don't translate the pain. I think that my films they try to focus on translating the hope. They try to find that kind of like sparkle. I'm trying to focus on that, but naturally I'm a person that really goes into the dark. And so before I do something, whether it's written or whether it's a short film or anything, I do a lot of research, and the research is always very dark. So we're doing a project now about some form of child trafficking. And I was doing a project with Amnesty about child trafficking, like worldwide. And so there is so much that is very, very dark. Yet, my story, I don't think we'll show it in a very dark manner. I think it will be kind of like a game between the two worlds, because otherwise, I think otherwise it's just it's too sad. And I think from a place of sadness we can grow, but I really think we need to see that kind of like light. And so that inspires me more.
Yeah. And we know it's heavy and it's dark. So what are we going to do? What we're going to do with that?
100%. Yeah, and even with the Ongi film that we're going to watch now, it's 2 minutes, I think 2.5 minutes. We spoke with the founders of the Ongi. I said to them, we want to do a film that shows that the kids are needy, or that, like they show what's happening in their houses. And Danny, which is is a co-founder, is actually a music producer. He's a very cool guy. He's 70 years old. He said, no, I want to go in Europe and I want to raise money and I want to show people what is the outcome of what we do. I don't want to show them the misery. And
Yeah.
It was very successful.
Yeah. Shall we watch it?
Let's.
I'll share the screen here. Compartilhar. Caraíva viva. Compartilhar. Let me find it here. I guess it's this one. Yeah.
Toda hora eu ouço as pessoas falarem do futuro. Eu não sei direito o que eu quero pro meu futuro. Tem uns que têm medo do futuro. Não vejo a hora dele chegar. Mas se o futuro for meio estranho, assusta. A gente fica adulto, nossos pais ficam velhos. Eu acredito no futuro. Será que eu vou mudar no futuro? O futuro é legal. No futuro eu quero ser veterinária. Eu vou ser médica. Eu não sei o que eu quero ser. Inventor e cientista. Às vezes eu tenho medo, mas é segredo. A gente vai crescer. Vai mais estudar. O futuro passa e a gente nem sente. Todo mundo já foi neném. Meu pai, minha mãe e meu tio também. Eu queria que o futuro fosse meu. Meu futuro é colorido. Até vermelho. Uhum.
Minha vida é diferente da sua.
Minha mãe se chama Cleia. Será que o futuro já tem um lugar? Eu quero morar pertinho do mar. O que eu tenho que fazer agora para ser mais feliz no futuro? O futuro depende do presente. Eu vou morar sozinha no futuro.
Eu quero ser artista, dançarino, ator.
Às vezes, por um segundo, a gente esquece. Mas o futuro já começou.
Yeah, that's a great one.
It was great.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
really
wonderful.
adventure. And we had a great crew that came with us. Andrew and Felipe Lyon, they came also, which did the ballerina with me. And it was really like a very special experience to be there, to spend like a week, to really get to know the people, the locals, and to really see the magnitude of the impact of the ONG on the new generation. It's an ONG that exists 15 years. So they really transformed the whole, young generation, kids from 0 to 15 and even older, because they started, at 5 or 10.
Yeah.
It's
and they dream of a future. They know it's possible,
Exactly.
Very good.
Actually, the dancer there is this kind of like a aerial shot that you go down and they dance. He got accepted to a dance school in Belo Horizonte, which is
really?
Yeah. So
What's
they
the
also
name again?
try to the Belo Horizonte.
No, the name of the
the school, the dance school.
I
wouldn't know.
You don't remember? Well, anyway, no problem.
Yes.
But I love this. What they say. They say, minha vida é diferente da sua. Minha mãe se chama Cleia. Meu futuro é vermelho. It's wonderful.
Yeah, actually, Andrew wrote it, and I thought it was beautiful.
People are saying here, congrats, bravo, yoo-hoo, wonderful.
Thank you.
So, people, that's Ayelet Vardi. She's great, isn't she? That's just a glimpse of her films. Go to Cinema Tribu, Instagram. Ana Claudia is saying, how great would it be if she came back to interview those same kids in the future?
That's true.
Right.
And I will do that.
You will do that. Great.
Yes.
And then you come back to ELA, Escola Livre de Arte, to show the what came out of this.
No problem.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Ayelet, I'm sorry to say, really sorry to say that we have to stop now. But I'm so glad you had a little time. You should find some half an hour to talk to us, and it was great. Thank you very much.
The pleasure was mine.
Well,
Yeah,
well, I hope
and
to see
thank you for the
soon.
people who took their time on Friday night at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. To
Well,
actually
people,
see the
here, Juan is saying, come back, please. Claudia
Whenever
is
you
saying,
invite me.
Claudia's here. Whether you look for the stories or they look for you, at the end, it must be rewarding for you. Congrats for such a delicate work.
Thank you.
That's it. That's it. And with that, we say good night and goodbye and see you soon. And thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Your last words?
Boa noite e bom fim de semana.
Sim, obrigada, igualmente. Tchau, gente.
Tchau, tchau.
Beijos.
Beijos.